Hello. Well, I've made many videos over the years. I don't feel terribly eloquent, but I'm going to try making this video and see how it works. I realize it's very dark. Perhaps that's better. Um, I'm 52 years old, and I'm going to use psychiatric sounding terms. I'm going to use the best words that I know. That's all I can say. I'm going to use the best words that I know because I think there's a lot that we don't know. I think there's a lot that doctors don't know about what I'm about to describe. A social related issue and how it's affected me. And I also don't think I'm the only one. As I talk, I think these are all things that everyone has probably seen. Difficult things or family things, and the world is not a perfect place, and life is difficult. I think if your life is more difficult and to the point of being violent, if it has become physically violent, it's been probably psychologically violent. And I know for myself, it's not something where you wake up when you're 13 years old and say, "Oh, my family's psychologically violent," even though everything's on you. If you're the victim of domestic abuse or family abuse, everything's on you. Everything is on you. You literally carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, and even calling things names doesn't necessarily help you. You want to live your life. People have difficulties, and psychologists will say you got to get over this and live your life and live your life. And for me to sit here and say that that's wrong, and then someone listening would say, "Well, that's you. That's what your experience." How can I speak for anybody else? Indeed, than myself. But I do think I speak not for, but in a way that a lot of, maybe probably millions of people could understand if they wanted to. There's also the issue of I use TikTok and Facebook, and I don't think either medium is really appropriate for these videos. Um, the only I had a blog and a YouTube account, and I wasn't even getting into things very deeply. And the result was getting a teenage stalker who's been stalking me sexually for the last 10 years from another country electronically. And some of these things are going to be funny. I mean, it's hilarious in a way. I mean, I guess the ability for humans to laugh at trauma is not because I'm minimizing, it's because it's like I'm depressed, and it is laughable because and I'm going to laugh sometimes, and some people might be freaked out by that, or you don't think to a second that I would ever undermine the suffering of I am a victim, and I could give you enough, if not proof, I could tell you things that would simply sound like I was a victim. But that's an important thing. I can't prove anything, and the thing about telling a story like this is it's not a court of law, and I'm not going to provide evidence. I get to talk freely, and I don't have a lawyer to protect me, and I'm not pressing legal charges against anyone, and this video in itself is not evidence in any legal sense, other than the fact that I'm probably a very hurt human being. It doesn't prove how I was hurt. It doesn't prove that it was a psychopath. It doesn't prove that my family are all psychopaths. If I sit here and said, I came from two families, my mom and dad's, who are psychopaths. And I have to say that I use the word psychopath. There's some psychiatrists, very few, who understand that the words psychopath and sociopath and narcissist and schizophrenic are all interchangeable in the complex hatred and violence that goes on among predominantly white or Caucasian, and I say Christian families. Christian Caucasian is very similar. Christian Caucasian psychopath is very similar. To me, white people, psychopaths, cults, These are all interchangeable terms. They have been for many years of my life. I see white people as psychopathic until proven otherwise. That's how I see you. I'm a Jew. I'm an Ashkenazi Jew. I have over 200 IQ, and I don't use it to perform special, stupid human tricks. I don't have a job. I'm not saying that my IQ means that I'm like, on top of the world, or that I have special insight into the workings of my refrigerator, much less anything else. But what I have needed to do and what I have focused my mind on is to try to find a cultural, historical context for my feelings instead of looking to psychiatry, which was no help to me. Though I will refer to psychology and psychiatry when I need to, um, and, and, uh, and yes, for lack of better understanding. Everything in this video is for lack of better understanding, okay? So see me in context. See me as someone who experiences things because of who they are, because I should experience things maybe because of who I am, and because who I've experienced things because of who and what I am that I shouldn't experience. And who is addressing people who may or may not be inclined to understand, comprehend, or sympathize me, or may indeed fetishize me. I find that on TikTok, women tend to fetishize me. On YouTube, women tend to fetishize. People in the white class tend to fetishize Jews and victims of abuse. I'm surprised nobody actually talks about that. White people, school teachers, they tend to fetishize their students even. They tend to sexualize children. They tend to sexualize children from lower classes. You can't train the white human animal to be a certain way and then expect it, to behave the way you think that humans should behave. We have this idea in white society that humans should behave a certain way, and what is normal. Often white people will say to other people, things like you're weird or you're a pervert and things like that. I've been called a pervert by women who came into my house and raped me. So what does it mean when white people say things? It doesn't mean anything. I don't mean to say if you're a white person, your voice doesn't matter, but I'm saying in my experience, what white people say is very misleading because I don't think they often understand what they're saying because they don't have any morals, they don't have any grounding. I grew up with children who had no grounding in morals. The school system doesn't teach morals, and it actually discourages children from the very types of learning environment where they would need to have moral and analytic and critical an opportunity to think critically, challenges, problem solving. The biggest idea of problem solving at school is math problems that have nothing to do with your life. A train leaves the station going 20 miles per hour as though it like immediately reaches that speed for 5 minutes, and another train going the other direction from a station 5 miles away is traveling at 25 miles per hour. How long before they hit each other? It's that type of thing. So so what happens is as you go on and deal with probably a lot of the challenges, not even as much as what I dealt with, schooling has actually undermined your ability to face challenges and solve problems. You end up just having to do it by yourself, having wasted the best parts of your years for learning how to solve problems, which is childhood and young adulthood. But not entirely. Now, white people, they don't have as much neuroplasticity as Jews, and they don't have the same thickness of the cortical wall. So they become adults very quickly. White children become adulted. They become as adult as they're going to be, even though they talk about adulting now, because white psychology and white jargon is very, very confusing. So I try to cut through the fog and say, well, when growing up, most white children I knew were adults by the time they were 13 years old. They were about as adult as they're going to become, sexually in their personality. Even younger than that, I found a lot of white children prone to bullying, elaborate psychological tactics, looking for sex, dating, experimenting with group sex as young as 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Oral sex as young as 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. This is very common for white children. whose brains develop, in a sense, more quickly than that of a Jew. Uh, so I often felt, left behind socially, and nor did I really want to emulate their behavior. So I felt more and more alienated, to say nothing of the fact that I wasn't allowed to be Jewish. I wasn't. Christians and white people in history did not allow me or my father to be a Jew. As I start talking, hopefully this will get into some other things. My father came from what it's called, and I pick up these terms from Google, by the way, so I don't like to plagiarize terms, because I'm always trying to find a way to understand my father. He's passed away now. Conflict avoidant, callous, and probably had imposter syndrome. And you can look these things up if you want, or just not being able to be themselves in a way that is the effect of a sustained and even thousands of years of anti-Semitism by white Christians. And to this day, I was approached by a fat, ugly, bearded bylaw officer and a group of bylaw officers while sitting in a public park on a bench that I'd made under a tree, peacefully, no one around, because to them, on some level, maybe I look like a homeless person, and their job is not to. Their job is to approach homeless people and make contact with them and let them know the rules of the park. And so he surreptitiously let me know I don't have a tent, but I have a backpack, and they focused on me, tried to pretend like it was just a normal chit chat, when in fact they had profiled and stalked me and fixated on me immediately. This has happened to me hundreds of times throughout my life, and walking outside in parks, that where I sit to white people is something wrong with it, or you find as a Jew, you may find it, for other reasons or the same reasons that you stand out to other people. It's a very lonely world to stand out to other people. A lot of people, you might think, and not necessarily true, because what we think of people is not necessarily true, but you might say that people dress up to get attention from people. Maybe I do my hair to get attention, or everything we do is to get attention, or at least to not look ugly and repulsive, whatever that means to other people. And I grew up getting attention for all the wrong reasons. I've never gotten attention for who I am, and around teachers and things. And when I did finally do anything that was close to who I am, I got maligned for it, and I got laughed at for it. So you can, I don't want to sit here and say, let's hate white people, but white people, to me, is the worst race on earth. They're the most unevolved creatures on this earth. White people are the greatest single danger to the health and welfare of any society that they live in. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe that should be studied. I think they're some of the most. I mean, we all have racism, but for different reasons. I make jokes about white people all the time, because me and my people, my peoples, which are about like two people, my mom and dad and me, or three people, those are my people, have been stalked, maligned, fetishized by my mom and I more, the fetishized. I don't think people fetishize my dad. But I can tell that they did at a young age, because sometimes when he would drink, he would fetishize young women. And I now know where that probably came from. This idea of getting to know people. You don't really know people, do you? You don't really know people until you know. Boy, I just realized that my hairline looks really receded on this video. Whoa, it's like it's almost disappeared. I actually used to have my hair bald in my 20s, and I have a tattoo on the back of my head, and a couple tattoos here and here. Two separate white people. I went to a white doctor, and I went to a white mental health clinic for depression. And I don't think he was a doctor, but he was like an intake worker. And he suggested that because my head was bald, probably other factors as well, that I wasn't a full adult yet. And I was probably 23 years old, 24 years old. And Yeah, sometimes I'm a little confused about the timing, but 20, 24, 25 years old. And he seemed to think that would edify me in some way. I think that, white people and mental health workers, I try to be kind to white people, but I think white people tend to, in social situations and when they're working with poor people or mentally ill people, they tend to exploit the vulnerability. So when I say that white people do, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't have, like children. White people are like children. They grow up to become adults very quickly. They become highly sexual very quickly, but they also remain children the rest of their lives. And then someone like me who has thicker cortical walls, you know, they see us as not becoming an adult, and they always see us like children. So it's not a race to see who's more of an adult. I also think that depending on your situation in life, is very hard to feel like you're an adult or to feel like you're around adults at all. What is an adult? I think when people have children, they tend to become more adult-like. When you have to care for another creature, I would say the first kind of person I would say is the most adult are people who have children, because you have to care for a creature who entirely depends on you. Other than that, I wouldn't know how to say like someone is definitely an adult. I don't have children, so I get to be puckish and boyish and sit around and make fart jokes all day if I want to. So that's not as much of an adult as someone who has a child. But I have had a lot of experience of white people, and I have my opinions as to whether or not most of them are, and even those with children, are really adults, really human. Even I think the white race has been so demoralized that they're not really human anymore. So I notice I say demoralized. I don't think white people in the school system and the culture are really allowed to become fully human. Uh, and so this exacerbates any other issues any of us might have with white society, because it is a white society. I mean, I've lived in areas that are predominantly white. I was sitting at a coffee shop in Surrey one day, and I was very pleased because I don't go out there a lot. And it was in South Surrey, near the SFU campus. I was in a coffee shop, nice coffee shop, and I looked out because I was staying with a psychopathic friend, but a psychopathic friend, because white people are psychopaths, so that's how I refer to them. And I was looking at the crosswalk, and I noticed, and with a mild amount of somewhat racist horror, but then also kind of like a relief, like I've just like entered a new and better world, that 90% of the people crossing the sidewalk, crossing the street, were not white. 75% of them were brown. And we're thinking, a little taken back. That's a little new. That's a new observation. So a little racist response, like, whoa, not scared, but just like, I'm noticing this is new. And then going, oh, that's more realistic to the entire planet. There's way more brown people than white people actually in the world. So, and then hey, and then another kind of racist thing, like, oh, good for you. You live in a multicultural environment. It made me feel better as a person, even though it really had nothing to do with me, and it wasn't my accomplishment. And I have no brown friends, although some of the nicest people I've known have been brown. I would say acquaintances, but not friends. So I feel like after a lifetime of patterns, if not daily, but routine stalking and abuse, the bylaw officer coming up to me, very friendly, good at his job. So I make conversation. I pull out my camera right away in case this is something I need to be concerned about, but also to put him on notice in my body language that I'm prepared to record this conversation. As soon as he comes up to me and he doesn't say where do you live, or what are you doing here, I put my camera away. It's like, okay, he's not being like really offensive. So we just sort of, hey, how's it going? This is what they're doing here. We chit chat, and then he leaves. I still don't like it. I still think it's abusive, and it makes me angry. It makes me angry even now, because I've seen them around, and I thought, and I've done nothing more, sitting right there to tell white drug addicts and drunks who don't like them that they're really good people. They're really good people, and they're really good people, and all white people are really good people, right? But he's actually profiling me. And that's not good. I don't have a tent. I'm not a homeless person, right? but he sees it as job to make contact with me. And white people do this all the time. White people do this who aren't even bylaw officers. And but that's not his fault. So when you get racism your whole life and someone comes up to you and you, let's say I get mad at them, I'd be getting mad at them for everything that's ever happened to me, and that's not fair to him. It's not. I'm not a judge and jury that can mete out a certain amount of passive aggression to everyone that comes up to me. Oh yeah, what do you want? And why did you come up to me today? Just tell me. Is it because of the backpack? Is it because I'm Jewish? And I'm not going to get into that. So you find yourself keeping the peace and de-escalating, and you may find that you treat white people. You may not realize it as though they have a mental illness, and that if you don't, it's going to look like you have a mental illness. So the interaction, the relationship, the interplay between me and white people doesn't provide for everyone involved to actually maintain their sense of dignity. It doesn't have the currency of that because white people grow up in what I call a deoxygenated environment where there's not enough for everyone in any relationship to actually stand on their own dignity. It's a subtle but very powerful thing, repeated over and over and over in every relationship, right? The idea of equality and fairness doesn't exist at a pathological level, and I don't think it can because, again, white people grow so quickly in these very strange institutions that we call schools, which don't involve in teaching math and anything. They teach white people who grow very quickly how to be sociopaths. And then we learn that sociopaths are bad people. You know, the whole culture is sociopathic and schizophrenic. You'll notice that every white person who commits a crime, and other people, because the white sickness is communicable, it's contagious, it's like a disease. Every time someone commits a crime in white society, they always have PTSD, they have schizophrenia, narcissism. They always have mental problems. I saw a white girl on TikTok who attacked a police officer, and then their family protected her and said she's got mental issues. I've had all kinds of mental issues, all kinds of trauma. I could compete in the trauma Olympics. Never assaulted a police officer, ever. And she looks like she's about 16, 17 years old, and then they say that she's pregnant. I guess that would be another issue, as though that makes it okay. So white people always have reasons why it's okay to be violent. But if you're like me or you're in a minority class of people, you can never be violent. You don't even want to have like a conflicted conversation. I go to a post office, and a white woman who's been maybe drinking for lunch can suddenly become hostile with me because I say it's a lovely day out. I've had white people get mad at me because I said like the sun feels like love to me or something. It's like, oh, it's not love, it's photons. And it's like, well, no doubt. I wasn't trying to make a scientific statement, you see, but they changed the entire context. It's not love. That's not scientific. It's like, well, I don't think anyone's saying that the stars are beautiful, loving angels floating through the sky is making a scientific statement. It's just a human thing that feels good. It's like, oh, the leaves are like the fires of a hell that is quenched by the insouciant and hydromantic vapors of the ingress of time and tides of growth and the perenation of the rings of the creative force of the universe. It's like beautiful, and it means something to me, but it doesn't have to mean something to you, and it's certainly not a scientific statement. It's like, yes, that's not scientific. And it's like, hey, I watched your video, that's not scientific. And all these people have scientific degrees, I'm sure. I think scientists know when science is happening and when science isn't happening. If a scientist is eating a bowl of Cheerios, and he'd be like, hey, this is not scientific. I really like these Cheerios, but that's not scientific. You would have to have a control group and collect data and measure and find out about people and their age and maybe do MRI scans in their brain and see like what it means when they say they like Cheerios. You know what I'm saying? Because it could mean different things. Some people could see those little holes as somewhat sexual little arenas where you can go in and find a universe of sensual delights unlike anything from the excesses of the Roman Empire. Good stuff. So I mean, it's just that's what gives scientists a job, right? Because it's not easy to understand things and then even know like, do we really understand something or are we just reading into it? Like it's called a job for a reason, right? It's not called like scientific into like it's not a creative job. It's like science is not a it's not a, like a pulling things out of the dark that sound good. That's what I do. Right? That's what I do, and I've never once called myself a scientist. Although early in my poetic career, I thought poetry does have a note of for me scientific inquiry because it involves me wanting to know things, to feel connected, and I want to do it without a beaker and a test tube, or I think a beaker is a test tube actually, or a Bunsen burner. So the white education system was nothing. It was a waste of 13 years of my time. A waste, abusive, locked up with a bunch of white fucking criminal sociopaths who are never gonna. They never regret their education. They go into their 70s and they go to their high school reunions. They love it. They love it. I mean, they found their religion. Socializing for white people is like their fucking religion. A little bit of drink, a little bit of talk. You find out where you went on vacation and some pictures, and you get your connect. I have no idea what enjoyment they find because I've been around them. I've been around them at different ages, and I don't think they're really capable of love. I think, and more to the point of this video, that psychopaths or white people are loyal to their idea of love. They're loyal to things. Psychopaths are very loyal. They're loyal to themselves. They're loyal to certain ways of interacting with people. They're loyal to dominant groups. And so they're loyal to their family. So a white person can say, hey, is lying wrong? Yes. But if their family member lies and beats up a dog or something, then that's okay. So there's no clear morality. And of course, there's lots of reasons in life where we can all diverge from our stated values. If I said, I'm a nice person, I'm not a racist, and I use the N-word on TikTok all the time. If I see a black person, preventing I saw a black person preventing an old white woman from walking up the stairs at a skyscraper station in Vancouver and saying, go around me. And I can understand his hatred for white people, like their sense of entitlement. But my mom is about the same age, and they often need to hold on to the rail when they're climbing. And I called them an N-word upside and down, absolutely. Because I'm saying, I hate what you're doing. I hate you right now. I hate who you are, and I hate what you represent. You're an N to me. Absolutely. I will use that term anytime I fucking want to. But if I'm around respectful black people, I would never use it. I would never initiate. I don't think of them as Nigers. I don't think of them as from Niger. Niger is a very nice country. If you're from Niger, I guess you would be a Nigerian. I'm sorry. It's just hilarious. To tell you the truth, I don't think most black people are too caught up in whether I say the N-word or not. It's just about respect. It's about respect. If I'm flinging it off, it's just respect. I think every race, Jews, I don't have people like being careful about my culture. I get Christians coming up to me and telling me that God owns me, or that Jesus is inside of me, and that they saw me reading a book, and while they were staring at me in a coffee shop, God told them to turn around and come humiliate me in public and tell me that I need Jesus. I don't have any protection. I wish that Christians would stop using the word fucking Jesus around me. You can go fuck yourselves in Jesus. I give a fuck about Jesus. Jesus basically started the fucking Holocaust. He did. Yeah, Jesus started the Holocaust. Jesus is why the Holocaust happened. You're fucking little Jesus Christ. That's right. You're perfectly innocent, lovely, fucking crazy white dude walking around with his long hair and his flowing robes and suffering the children to come onto him as he come all over their faces or something. He's the fucking most evil, fucking ugly cunt in any kind of so-called literature in the history of the world. So white people just are loyal to the idea of things. You're loyal to the idea of love, but you don't actually love. Because you don't have the environment. Your brain is never given the environment to learn how to love. It learns how to be loyal to your team, right? I watched a TikTok video of a white woman coming out of a health fitness place with the word team on it, and other employees coming out and attacking a brown man, who's simply recording. And they have windows all along the side. And it's like, why do you have windows if I can't record you, right? So when I've seen white women in a park once doing yoga, and they weren't paying any extra money. They're getting free advertising, putting up their signs on the grass, and I'm like 500 feet away, and a white woman starts putting out her chest to make sure I know not to come near them. Right now, some people would have just walked up and said "fuck you." I'm sure my dad, but I'm not like that. I wasn't walking there to begin with, right? So, but I just think I take exception to it. It makes me angry, right? Because I can go anywhere in public and white people can come and question my right to be there. But a bunch of white cunts can get together in tight pants and show men, women, and children their fucking vagina and their tits while they're practicing their health program. And I better make sure I stay away. Suddenly, I have no right to be walking 500 meters away if I have the slightest idea of coming near their direction because a white woman is there protecting them. I mean, that upsets me. It upsets me because it's a mental illness that I'm familiar with. It represents something to me that I've encountered my entire life. If I just saw that one day and I wasn't sensitive to it, it wouldn't matter. White behavior really triggers me, as they say, because I see so much of it. This territorial nature, saying, this is mine. Come near me and see what happens because we're really special and innocent and we're doing something and you're a perverted man who wants to fuck us. Yeah. You ever met a fucking young white girl who doesn't want to fuck? You ever met a white woman who's not fucking horny every day? Hey? Yeah. But perversion never gets associated to white women, right? Women's cunts are getting fucking wet. They're fucking sticking their fingers up their cunt fucking twice, 3 times a day. They're proud. They tell their friends they fucking masturbate all the time. They got fucking huge dildos. They're thinking about fucking, fantasizing about fucking and love and sucking and fucking and holding and fucking and getting their tits sucked and held and their ass grabbed and their fucking pussy reamed and jammed. They're thinking about it all the fucking time. No one calls white women perverts though. Right? You know? I'm all into like female modesty, and I grew up with that, but it doesn't mean anything. All it says to white women is that they can fucking rape you whenever they want, right? It's right. Sex is a white woman's prerogative, and they have a home cunt advantage. Sex is a war, and it's a war that is designed for women, white women, to win, and they have a home cunt advantage. They always fucking do. They always fucking do. Their cunt is a passport to take whatever they fucking want with you. To be friendly, to be nice, to be cute, to ask you for dinner, to suck your dick, to do whatever they want. Right? I have a neighbor. She's a 75-year-old fucking ugly white cunt. Right? And she invited me to have coffee in the lobby with her and her friends one day. And within a minute of sitting down, she invited an old woman that she's friends with to come and sit on my lap. I didn't say anything. Everyone laughed. What do you think about that? Should I have told her to go fuck herself? I've got to live in this building, right? Because if the environment supports that, and I say go fuck yourself, what's that going to do? Right? My reactive violence is going to create a problem, and it's going to make everyone uncomfortable, to say nothing of how uncomfortable I am being treated like this throughout my life. Now, I wouldn't hurt a woman. I wouldn't say I'm so angry, but I will speak ill of white women. I can't fucking stand white women. I call them cunts. You're all fucking cunts. You're fucking ugly pieces of shit. I've never met a white woman. There's some young women, some that I've met now and then, who seem like they've got something going on. But even then, it's hard to tell because most white people are sociopaths. What do I mean by sociopath? I'm going to warm up my coffee and I'll come back and tell you what I feel about these terms, and I'll come back around and I'll tell you about what life was like in my family, right? In my white Christian family. These families that aren't families, who worship the idea of love. And you know who benefits by being loyal to this God and this idea of love? Psychopaths. Christianity is made for psychopaths. The white education system is based on Christianity. It's made for psychopaths. Mental health favors psychopaths and staggered according to different and higher economic scales in the appearance of adulthood, development, status. I'll come right back. Thank you. This has been a conversation or a talk that has involved some anecdotal, mostly just my feelings and just overall attitude towards white people and some beginnings of the ideas why. But now I'm going to talk about something very specific that happened to me. I want to note that, if anyone has this type of thing happen to them, as I suggested earlier, I should have been, but I wasn't prepared. As I heard a white woman talk about it, I think she was quite right. There's some very smart white people, some very nice white women out there, but they're rare. And you really know when you listen to them. I'm not saying it's me, but as you said, there are things to do with psychopathy in families and human beings, white people, I would say, that at some point the storm hits. And by the time the storm hits, you know that all of the warnings that you were getting, perhaps for years, were correct. So, in a way, when a psychological storm or violence hits, it's something that was telegraphing itself for a long time. And I was kicked out of my childhood home. My sister, I now believe, is a sociopath. And the word sister isn't fair to those of you who have sisters who are decent people. So when I use these terms, it's someone who I called my sister. This person isn't capable of being a sister. She's not capable of being my friend. She's not capable of being a human being. She's not capable of love. She's not capable of being a daughter to my parents. She's not capable of any of these things. And yet she will never suffer any disquiet, any remorse, any feelings of distress or estrangement, but can weaponize every seeming kind of estrangement that anyone can have from their parents in order to gain sympathy from other people. So a nightmare, a perfect fucking nightmare. No one prepares you for having one, much less several sociopathic siblings. So this is one of the primary sociopaths that I was around growing up, and my father was vulnerable from growing up, did very well for himself, grew up with poverty, conflict avoidant, callous, probably extremely grief-stricken, and wasn't getting on well with my mom at all, was quite cruel to her quite often. So he was adjusted to a family of psychopathy that my mom did not fit into because she was not adjusted to that type of environment. She was kicked out of her own family by the time she was 5 years old. Her oldest brother is a psychopath and a sexual predator, my Uncle Art, who essentially isolated, excluded her, and raped her. Raped her other siblings as well, involved the brother. So my sister's the same way. Sociopaths will involve other people because it makes them safer to involve other people. It's hard to imagine a 16-year-old doing this, but in white society, sociopaths, white people grow up very quickly, they become adults very quickly, and very severe sociopaths become very expert. So you're watching TV and you're seeing all these, dramatic versions of criminals and stuff. You're growing up with someone with very complex, but yet very intelligent and very determined strategies, kind of like a war for getting what they want without any remorse for what they do to other people. They know how to get people roped into what they're doing, so it protects them. So he got his brother, older or younger, to help him rape them and to involve that. And her sisters didn't seem to really care, They were kind of already going to be certain types of people, Christians. They grew up very quickly. I think they saw it as a catalyst for growth more than anything else. And so you'll get what's very confusing is you might get siblings in a white family, and let's say there's 4 children, and the oldest child rapes three of them. And only one of them, as they get older, have any traumatic, effects of being raped. The other, like Christians often just see things like, oh, that's just sin, and, that's just God testing me, and everything is about learning how to love because we're all sinners, and we've all fallen short of the glory of God. So if I get mad at this, that's just the devil getting a hold of me. So whether it's the devil that makes you think of trauma, or isn't it kind of like the devil that makes you ignore it? But whatever they do, getting over things and pretending that they don't exist is really very much part of the white society, because it's a very aggressive world. You grow up very quickly. So white children become very desensitized to the idea of even being traumatized. And then if you're around that, you don't really think to even object to trauma because nobody else is. So it's like a team sport suddenly. And it's like, instead of just learning how to play basketball, you're learning how to hide rape. And it's a family team sport. Um, so I know for a fact that white psychology and group psychology and family psychology doesn't work. I can tell from reading books produced by people and interviewing people who do these types of things for adults and children, and I know that they all avoid this dynamic. All white people will absolutely avoid what I'm talking about. How can you presume to want to help human beings when you can't do that? Well, you can do that because you're white, and in the white world, that's called loving people and therapy. Therapy protects the rapist. The therapist protects the rapist in the family. So no one ever gets deeper, because if you did, because the school system comes out of Christianity, mental health comes out of Christianity, and it's all gatekeeping for a language of the equivocation of love and hatred. It's about being loyal to the word love and being loyal to people who decide on your behalf what is hatred and what is wrong and what you're not allowed to talk about. So psychopath, like white society, regulates what it's okay to talk about around the areas where it's okay for all kinds of people to fetishize and rape other kinds of people who aren't allowed to have any feelings. So if a white woman sexually assaults me in front of all of the management of this building, most of whom are women, and the women sitting at the table, my neighbors, and I don't say anything, it's okay. If I say something, I look like an asshole, right? Because after all, a psychopath like this lady Joan, she can say, oh, it's just a joke. Not a joke to me. How would you feel if I talked to you that way? Oh, I would like it. You know, you can just see how that conversation is going to go. Obviously, there's something wrong with you. So, one really good writer, white, I can't remember his name now, he said that, in white society, the whole idea is you're weird, but really I'm weird. You're not okay, but really I'm not okay. White people can always say that their victim is not okay. Like, I'm okay with rape. Why aren't you? I'm okay with this. And yet, white people can be victims of you at any time. So, if you're a minority or a Jew or someone who's been hurting your family, you're not allowed to be a victim. Your predatory white family can be the victim. And they're all better at dealing with being a victim than you are. So, sure, everyone's dealt a bad hand. Why don't you just move on? Oh, everyone's had some problems in the family. Why don't you just move on? So, all problems are seen as equal. And most of the people around you, indeed, are probably a lot less sensitive than you are and don't give a shit. Because that's the culture. It's the culture of psychopathy, of being loyal to the group, the idea of the group. Family is just an object of loyalty, like love. It has nothing to do with how people really feel, right? And since that's probably fine for everyone except you, nobody has to give a shit. So imagine growing up. That's like growing up in a fucking prison camp where you have to pretend like you're in Disneyland every day. Right? And you wonder why people fucking go mentally insane. You wonder why people suddenly kill their parents or burn down their fucking house. Not that you should. The fact is that most victims aren't going to do these things. It's the psychopath in the family that does those things because they want to take control. So my younger sister, who's not my sister, she was probably as far as an adult as she was going to be by the time she was probably 10 or 11 years old. That's why when you deal with a lot of white people, they became an adult when they were very young. So it's a kind of a confusing energy, right? Where some of us may feel that we're not even an adult yet, and they'll sometimes say, "Oh, I'm not an adult yet," but they've developed some very hardened, ossified traits that would result in this sense, adulthood would be a range of fluent compliance with the death-born personality and sexual complexes of group narcissism or hierarchical God complexes, the worship of a thing from which all people draw some kind of identity without which they would have no place in the world at all, and that failing which you have no rightful place among those groups and can never attain to it to your own safety and satisfaction. That's how white families work. It's just how they work. I know they do. I've seen it my whole life. That's not a family. White families are not families. I watched a video on TikTok, and the caption tells you how to think about it. It says, sometimes, right, a child is going to make a mistake, and the father chose love over anger. Okay, what does the young boy do? Okay, the young boy is about 8 years old. He's in a truck that looks to be like a 5 or 6 year old brother, and he's in his dad's truck, and he lowers the emergency brake, and the truck starts going off. The one boy who lowered the brake jumps out of the car, His younger brother is still in the car, right? And he's running. And the younger brother, thankfully, jumps out before the vehicle goes down an embankment and rolls a couple times, which would have caused severe injuries for the other child. Now, what are you watching in this video? I won't play the video for you, but what are you watching? Okay, so what does the father do? He stands there, and the older brother, and he says, you can't quite hear it, but it's like, I'm glad you're saved, and he gives him a hug, and the other boy comes up and hugs both of them and says, Daddy loves you. What does that really teach them? I can tell you that his oldest son is a psychopath. He just almost killed his son. And then it has this comment to help explain to you, in case you haven't fully learned how ingenious white people are, that, when you're a parent, every child makes mistakes. But you want to teach them that making a mistake doesn't mean that they're not loved. Right? Really, making a mistake. He almost killed his brother. He almost fucking killed his brother. He knew exactly what he was fucking doing. And that's how psychopaths thrive in white society, because they're loved when they should be disciplined. See? So white people don't use love the right way, right? Obviously, this young boy has learned he can do anything and his father will love him. Now, someone watching this video finds out that in 10 years that the older brother killed and tortured the younger brother, you'd be like, oh, it's disgusting, he should go to jail. But you'll never question your fucking culture. What if, right? And yet, growing up, some old white cunt said to me one day, didn't even know who they were, approached me. They shouldn't have. And I think, I'm trying to think how old I was. I think it was in my 20s. I don't know. I always felt really young. I always feel really young compared to white people. They started mentioning my sister, and very combative, and I didn't know them. And I said, in one of a rare instance of reactive anger, I said, I don't believe anything my sister says. I don't listen to her. And it was the most truthful thing I probably ever said. And they get, and I'd never, sometimes the strangers are helpful. And I said, I don't believe anything. I don't listen to anything my sister says. Indeed, I'd never had a relationship with my sister. She's a pathological liar. And they went back and told her, and then she got mad at me. Now, I've seen this other times in my life with white women in college who raped me, and then find out from a mutual friend that I didn't like the experience, and then come back and tell me that they heard that and it upset them, and then tell me that they want to fuck me still. So they don't have any morals. They just like to keep dominance. They want to make sure that your feelings don't matter about what they do. It's incredible how deeply white cunts learn this. They learn that men's feelings don't matter. Men's feelings don't matter because white people learn that boundaries don't matter. It might be amazing to think that all white people are running around and have no fucking morals whatsoever. How can you have morals? Look at the education system. The elementary school down the street is named after the liquor store, for Christ's sake. I have morals because I'm a Jew. You have to have the right brain function. And so white people will say how young girls sexually develop faster than young boys. White people fucking develop faster. They do. They develop faster. But the interesting thing is white boys were developing faster on me, but they were constantly fixating on me as though I was better than them. And I didn't understand it. And this helped create what now I call imposter syndrome. So my younger sister was able to, and I didn't know this, of course, control my father with her disease because he was vulnerable. And she actually got her younger brother, my younger brother, to tell my mom to leave the house. So she was already taking sides. She was already taking sides, already constructing a sort of metaverse, a hyper-reality, or paracosmos, where she could regulate the reality of other people and could pick and choose what types of behavior she would even acknowledge if anyone ever even noticed it. And it came to the point where I was in my 20s. A lot of things happened in my 20s. And I was 25, 26 years old. And I had gone through my first major depression because my sister, through my dad, through a proxy, kicked me out of my childhood home. And then they moved and basically said, we're not going to give you a bedroom, you should just leave. I was the only one paying rent. And then eventually, through my dad, she kicked me out of that house. And I was sort of relieved. I had no idea that they were sociopaths, but I knew that something was seriously wrong. So wrong, in fact, that when white people complain about me, and I think about what white people have put me through, it's horribly hilarious what white people do. You ever notice like what makes white women, white cunts, fucking uncomfortable, and what they're allowed to do to other fucking people? It's amazing. There's no morals in white society. There's no brain function around the area of behavior and consequence, and a sense of moral and critical proportion. There's no sense of proportion, right? So if you say a word around a white woman, she can lose her shit. But if she fucking rapes you and lives in your house for 3 months and lies to you about getting pregnant, hey, that's just so she can protect herself from you. She's protecting herself from you. When white women rape young boys, they're just protecting themselves from the awful, evil perverts who have penises. And you can listen to this and say, oh, wow, that's disgusting. I wouldn't do that. But the fact is that most white women are rapists. Most white women, rapists in Canada are heavily constituted and by the majority by people with vaginas. The vagina is a much more dangerous weapon than a penis. A penis does not have as much opportunity to rape as white vaginas do. If you have a vagina between your legs, the likelihood of you sexually assaulting a boy or a man in your life is probably 100%. And you wouldn't even know what you're doing. Because white people are in a theater, a paracosmos, where the laws of reality don't really apply. Men's feelings don't apply. Men won't even tell you. Boys won't even tell you. I've met half a dozen white women who've gotten pregnant from white children, and people pat them on the back and celebrate their femininity. That happens all the time. All the time. All the time. All the time. It's happening all the time. White women fetishize their students. They fetishize their students in elementary school. Males, they fetishize young boys. Absolutely. They objectify them. We are living in a culture in a constant moral, mental, psychological, and sexual crisis. So by the time I'm living with my now older brother in a basement suite, he invites a Christian friend of his named Kevin Peters, who, to my knowledge, never paid $1 of rent. And they start stalking me. And my sister, and through my sister, my father gets involved. And one day they tell me that he tells me it's not really my house. He wants to get me out so him and his friend can have the bedroom that I live in, and his friend can have the bedroom and they can live there. He tells me that I'm not allowed to use kitchen appliances. Okay, and I'm simplifying this for you. And so my sister and dad sent him a microwave from the house where I used to be abused, and he tells me, "You're not allowed to use it." So what would you do? So the next day I get up and I take the microwave and I put it outside in the driveway. And I said, "This is not coming into the house. I don't want something in the house that's predicated upon favoring one kind of person over another. It's inappropriate. So I'm just going to take it out." Well, these two men, in coordination with my sister, started becoming my sister, who considers herself God and a property manager, that it is not really my house, and that they should be able to tell me to leave where I'm paying rent. And it gets to the point where him and his Christian friend are pretending to leave, and then he comes down the stairs one day and says, he looks at me, this is my older brother, he's a psychopath, and tells me, "We're not going to leave, you are." And I'm terrified at this point. They've been stalking me, I'm going to school, I'm stressed out. And remember, I've also asked them to stop taking my things, going in the room. I've asked them nicely every time, and they're escalating. So I take a swing. I've never punched anyone in my life. Punch him in the side of the face. I said, that's not gonna fucking work for me. Then he approaches me and I say, please stop, let's not do this. And I go back into my kitchen and my hands are like this. And please stop, please don't. This is not someone who wants to fight. Please stop, please don't. And he takes me and he throws me to the ground on the kitchen floor, which is very hard, and he dislocates my shoulder. There's so much adrenaline running, I don't even feel it right away. I'm so terrified. And he takes the van that him and his friend use to 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 deal with handicapped people. That's one of their jobs. And he takes me to they've now handicapped me. They take me to the hospital, and we're walking to the hospital, and he's walking ahead of me, and I push him, and he takes a couple steps forward, and I think to myself, and I realize in a moment of horror that people are going to think that I'm violent. I look like I'm injured, and I feel like a violent person. Indeed, that's how they start to develop it. And I come back to my house. I have a sling on my arm, and his friend, who's not even paying rent, is at my washer and dryer. And I walk by him, and he comes out, and I'm standing about to go to my room and try to figure out what just happened to me. And I don't get angry, and he looks at me, and he says, he's a musician too, so he's got this curly hair, and he says, "A lot of pain there, man." That's what he says, "A lot of pain there, man." I don't say anything. I go to my room, and he packs his stuff, and he's gone the next day. So that's one down. And it just gets worse from there. And they then go to my white psychiatrist at local mental health, where I went, and I was told that I'm a delayed adolescent. And together they talked to my psychiatrist and developed me as a schizophrenic, and that whatever emotions I have are a sign of a severe mental break and a mental disorder. And they involve the local police and my medical doctor. All without my consent, all without ever asking me. Not one of these people ever talks to me and find out what happens to me. I will give credit to the RCMP. The RCMP officer that my sister uses to claim that I'm attacking her at some point. Eventually, I go to see him. We sit down in a room, and he thinks I'm a piece of shit, but he's willing to see me, and I appreciate that. He has no reason to believe that I'm anything other than just a low-life, poor piece of shit whose entire life is about bothering his sister and his family, and have nothing better to do in life. He doesn't know that I've been a straight A student, and that I'm going to school on a scholarship, and that I've written a couple books and self-produced my own short film when I was in high school. He doesn't know that I've written poetry most of my adult life. He doesn't know anything about me because they haven't told him. And I gotta give credit to the Canadian RCMP. He really distinguished himself. I just want to say that. The guy was a bright light in a realm of darkness and chaos that I didn't even know. He had every right to just treat me like a criminal and a piece of shit. And I could see it in his eyes when I came in, and anyone would. Any guy, I'm a guy. Any guy who listened to my sister talk to him would have thought, fuck you. Because schizophrenia is highly communicable. Chances are throughout our lives, we've probably listened to people tell us stories that aren't even nearly true that made us angry at someone. And don't feel bad, it happens to all of us. Thankfully, you're not a violent person, so you don't go to it. And he wasn't a violent person, and he didn't like me. And he probably didn't like the situation. And he was a constable, which means that they're probably in the first 3 years of their career, so maybe 5 years. And I don't feel comfortable talking about the police. I don't feel, they're kind of like it's like talking about Muslims. To me, it's like a respected tradition, not really religion, but a respected institution that is responsible as the first line of defense of every type of despicable thing that goes on in our country. So, I have a great amount of respect for that. So I don't even like talking to them on video, because talking about them. I usually don't even upload videos when I do, because I think that's inappropriate. And if I was just sort of putting you on and just saying nice things, and I can get angry at police. I can watch videos sometimes, and people, you'll notice, want people to get angry at police. They really do, because people like conflict with authority. I don't know why I just did this, but it's like people like conflict with authority. They like conflict. And we sat down, and I didn't say a lot, and he didn't. I just said, look, I know how this all may look, and he came into my house, and my brother sat down with him, my brother who dislocated my shoulder, and said that he should arrest me because I'm not a good member of their family. Because I said to him, and the most angry I got is I said, I don't feel like I have the same DNA as you people. And he wanted the police officer to arrest me. The police officer left, and I decided to go see him. I was angry. I was angry at the police officer. I was angry at everyone, for not protecting me and whatnot. But as soon as I went to the police station, and I made eye contact with him, and he was talking to another officer and looking at me and probably thinking, like, oh, what does this guy want, right? He's bothering his sister, and he's all he could probably know is he's one of those poor people you learn about in the Justice Institute who have all kinds of mental and drug problems and God knows what. Because that's how my sister would have developed me, and that's how the culture develops people. And to his credit, we sat down and wasn't rude. And I told him that something that they never told him, despite claiming that I was an awful person and needed to leave the house, and I didn't say that to him. I said that 2 weeks ago, my brother dislocated my shoulder. I didn't even say why. I said that I don't know for sure, but in my family, it's kind of like a storm, and I always seem to find myself at the center, indicating that, I have to keep my calm. I don't have the ability to do violence. I'm simply trying to live my life, and no matter what I do, I tend to get whipped around quite a bit, and that was pretty much the end of the interview. And I thought, it was many years later that I thought, like, maybe he should have pursued charges and asked some questions, But I can understand how, he probably talked to his superior. He would have had to have discussed it with his superior, and they made a decision in the best that they knew. And I wasn't pressing any charges. I wasn't saying I want you to arrest them. And with domestic disputes, how does he know we didn't just have a fight? And he was kind of already invested in what my sister had told him, who she had developed me as a schizophrenic and someone who was threatening them. And I put myself in his shoes. And I didn't expect anything. I probably should have. If I'd known, maybe I should have gone to victim services. I didn't know these things existed. I'm not sure what good it would have done. I just wanted to put the whole mess behind me. You would say, well, why did you go there? To confront him, to get mad? I think it was just the only thing I could do. I didn't have anyone. I later went to my doctor, and he told me to leave because he thought I was going to hurt him, because it said in my file I was a schizophrenic. And I went to go get treated for a breathing disorder. I was very anxious and not breathing very well because I'd been attacked. But he didn't ask me any questions. He didn't ask me what happened to me. To this day, 25 years later, I went to a white female doctor, and I mentioned that my family hurt my shoulder. She didn't even examine me and didn't ask me any questions. I went to a naturopath 10 years before that. Didn't ask me any questions. White people don't ask a lot of questions about these things. I find that's pretty consistent with the culture. White people, and I exclude the police from this, sort of automatically know, kind of like God is like a demon, like this demon complex. They automatically know who to side with at any time. It's like they're part of a cult, and they know that you're not part of the cult. If you've been hurt, or you claim to be hurt, you're obviously not a part of the cult. They know right away because you're not in communication with them, or you don't seem to be friends with them. If you're not friends with your family and you're outside your family, you must have done something wrong. That's generally how white people think. And it has an immune system. Their cult, their race has an immune system. Their racial schizophrenia has an immune system. God is a parasite, which is to say, paradise and parasite go together because he's the lord of the language of the land of the dead, the death-born personality complexes that have emerged with their compliance to a hierarchical pyramid scheme that forces people to become something that's not very human and prevents them from really learning and developing what I would say truly human faculties. The school system doesn't focus on teaching children how to develop truly human faculties, like that guy with his son almost killing his brother. If my son almost got his younger brother killed, I would take that very fucking seriously. my older brother almost got me killed in a car. And while it was an accident, um, my brother has put me through a lot of accidents in my life. Gave me this mark on my forehead, slammed a door in my head, almost broke one of my fingers when I was older, dislocated my shoulder, almost killed me in a car accident. Um, you know, this is the problem with white families. Psychopaths tend to have a lot of people around them tend to have a lot of accidents. And no one really sees that. And white people just, well, their idea of love, like a psychopath's idea of love, is loyalty. Loyalty and love are very closely connected. Loyalty to what they call cognitive empathy, loyalty to the status quo, loyalty to the image which we present the world. Sorry, it's 4:35 in the morning. Well, it's 5:30 now. 4:30 when I started this. I don't want to go into huge detail again. It could make hours of video, but in the last several years, I've been being stalked by my sister, who's the executor of my dad's will, who's been sexually and conspiring with a white woman in another country to sexually stalk me and my mother and to demean and dehumanize us and to prevent us from getting due care and compassion from other family members. We've moved to a new place to help, and it didn't help, and she sort of ramped up her activities, and I eventually found a way to create a bit of a stalemate with her without getting angry, using my ability as a Jew to use words carefully, craftily, you might say, but I think that's kind of anti-Semitic to say that I was crafting my words. I was literally using my words and without lying and pretending, talking to her as though she actually cares about her mom and dad, but establishing within that framework of a kind of paracosmos some opinions moving forward about, everyone being safe and reducing conflict in our family. So I had to be kind of a Jewish lawyer about it. I'm very aware of the difference between crafting a letter for my mother's personal safety, and manipulating people. And I have to, because as a Jew, as a victim of white society, white people are constantly watching what I do and how I behave. In this building, every time I go and talk to the managers, every time I do anything, I know I'm being critically watched in terms of how I behave and how I talk. So I've learned to live a kind of double life in talking to white people as though I'm a white person and protecting who I am and what I'm really like. When we moved into the building in the last year, the management has already stolen $2,000. They've already extorted $2,000 from us. And yet we have to feel concerned about making them upset. So when white people do things to other people, they tend to become more aggressive and they demand more compliance from their prey. So the more a white person does to you, the more you have to take on the responsibility of looking innocent to them. So white society is completely fucking backwards. It's a schizophrenic society. So I talked to the nice constable. He's a nice guy. I mean, I don't know if he's a nice guy. I was in such a difficult situation. I wasn't assessing his character, but he was professional, I guess is the way to put it. And I told him a few things. I was a little bit rude to him, to be honest with you. He told me that my family has some communication issues, which is a fair point. And I said to him, and I regret this, that maybe you're not the person to talk about communication issues. Meaning, he came to my door and he was prepared to crash it in because he was convinced by my sister that I was a dangerous person, and my brother. And I was sorry for saying that. It's amazing, how I feel sorry. I feel remorse for saying that. I feel bad. He would have a right to be upset with me. He was just trying to help. The last thing police need is for you to fling your problems onto them as though they've created the situation, coming into my fucking chaotic family. So I'm sorry for that. But that was about as aggressive as I got. I was upset. And I think hopefully in hindsight he realized that I was upset. Not that he underserved me, but I think police often, they get stressed about what they see. They probably get stressed, like any of us, about a lot of situations where they would like to be able to do more. Probably a very caring person. But I think you would understand that I was pretty stressed out at that point. I didn't have a lot going for me, and I felt defensive because he'd come into my home and he'd done his job, but I felt at that point like a siege had taken hold of my life. And what we do is we project onto the one decent person, right? We get mad at them because we can afford to. We have to hold someone responsible. Here I am trying to hold him responsible for my life. I felt awful about that. And I'm not trying to make the police look bad here in any way. He was absolutely professional in every way. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. It took me a lot of years to realize that. It's easy to blame. People don't realize that the very thing that makes law enforcement possible is they have very strict rules as to how and what way they get involved with people's chaotic, violent homes. I'm sure if they could fix them, they would. And I like to think, looking back, that I mostly just didn't want him to see me as a bad guy. I felt like a piece of shit. I felt like a criminal. I felt like I deserved to be mutilated. Like I must have done something wrong to these people, and I was really feeling defensive. Going to the doctor and being rejected for being a psychopath, having the doctor walk out of the room because he's automatically developing me as a conflict-oriented person. To the point that he told me to take off my shirt. He said, why, I noticed you have tattoos. I said, is that going to affect my ability to get medical services? And so he just left. I was feeling very defensive. I couldn't believe that he could look at my file and not see that I'd been injured. I think what happens is that medical people and police, and I was an adult who was seriously injured, they tend to tiptoe around it pretty carefully. What happens is, by no fault of their own, the victim ends up getting the short straw. You have to proceed correctly. You have to go to victim services and get a lawyer and, do it properly, because their job is not to defend you. Their job is not to enter into the quicksand of your life and become your father and your savior and your hero, as much as I'm sure police would want to be. That's not something that they can do. And it bothers me, even 25 years later, that I'm still dealing with the same people. And yesterday, I set my boundaries as best I could, and I just crashed yesterday. I was so angry and depressed. Which is understandable. According to Google, my whole nervous system just crashed. We've been living like prisoners in our own home. My elderly mother gets verbally abused, manipulated. They just do it. Like, that's who they are, right? That's their personality. My father passed away. This person is the executor of her will. Every time I've sat down with this person, they insult him. They say he's a sexual predator. My dad's a psychopath. He sucks at his job. He actually, helped to create a multi-million-dollar company that employs hundreds of people. It's a modest size franchised company in southwestern British Columbia. And he was an employee, but he basically made the company what it was. He was the workhorse. If you have a company and you have someone who actually sells, well, there's not much point in selling things if you don't have somebody selling things, right? So that's what he did. He's the one who caught all the fish. He was the number one fisherman, and he deserves credit for that. And I like to think that, I'm not a big fan of sales, but he wasn't selling insurance. He sold things, real things, physical things that people needed. And so you can't manipulate too much into getting them to buy a winch for the front of their truck. It's a winch. It costs a certain amount of money, and here it is. So I've had to endure a lot of hearing a lot of dishonorable things, a lot of crazy speech from this person when she's around. He basically slanders him even after his death, and it makes me really sad. And has stalked us, has helped other people stalk me. And I have to apologize to her in order to settle things down. She has no concept of a proportion to her behavior. So we're quietly separating from her as best we can. Instead of going, fuck you, I have to go, I have to speak like I'm speaking to a child without sounding like I'm speaking down to her. And my shoulder, I've had, 20 plus shoulder dislocations in 25 years. Surgery. Last year, she tried to get me to talk to the brother that she coerced into attacking me with her, my dad, and his friend. And because I politely declined, she tried to pay my mom money to evict me, to get the right to talk to the management and have me evicted from my home, which is ridiculous, I know, but it had the effect of traumatizing me, obviously. And we lived like in a dream, in a nightmare for several months, and the new year came along, a year after my dad's passing, and she started stalking me again, and then again 2 months later, and interfering with important milestones in our lives. And so it's been a long journey for me. So I crashed and got really depressed yesterday, which is actually a sign of success because my body's finally able to start the recovery process. It's a very angry day for me. It's been a long time. It's been a lot of years. And in the course of those years, I've been nothing but stalked and harassed by white people entering my life under any of the usual circumstances that people enter our lives. And got a sexual predator living beside me. Got staff in the building obviously condone sexual harassment, but of course on paper they would say, like, white people, that it's absolutely wrong, but they clearly condone it. White people don't have a moral framework to any of their shared environments with other people. So there's no means, especially for men, people with penises, to have any kind of recourse or means of redress or remedy when they feel made uncomfortable. You can go on Google, and a woman declaring that she wants to sit on your lap is a clear sign of sexual harassment and assault. You tell people that you're uncomfortable. You can't do that. I look at things about sociopaths and family. They say disconnect and do this. I can't do those things. So I have to do it all by myself. It's not that Google's not doing the best they can, but then you have to do it all by yourself. Victims of white people, we have to do it all by ourselves. So I'm not talking to people like, hey, I know what you should do. I know if somebody asked me, maybe I would make some suggestions, but you're on your own. It's a terrible thing to say to people. I should be offering encouragement, but you're on your own. You have a sociopathic family, you're on your own. I'm not saying that to be mean. You are, right? You know you are, I know you are. You can't help me, I can't help you. This video is me just finding a way to find a support system, a hypothetical support system, and tell my story a bit. And the idea of doing that to the human body and then being able to talk to my therapist, who on some level I'm sure just want to help people, but again, white schizophrenia is an emergent and highly communicable and contagious property. And it's hard to blame white people for being susceptible to it, particularly therapy. And people who are religious, Christianized, or educated in the white world are very prone to be. So sociopaths are having the most fun on the face of this earth. White female sociopaths are having the best possible time on this earth. They can do whatever they want, rationalize whatever they want. They can literally be in your presence and talk down to you and contradict you and act superior and tell you things about themselves that of a disquieting nature while disputing everything you have to say about your own life and your own feelings. It's enormously common. I wish somebody would write a book about it. One day I might. I don't know how I would. and I certainly don't think it would be published if I did, even if I could do such a thing. And I make videos to upload on YouTube that are probably never going to be seen. As an adult and as a sane, relatively sane human being, I don't know why anyone would watch this. But if someone has sat through this, I commend you. I hope, I'd like to think that you've come from a wide range of education, intelligence, and experience, and you don't need to comment. I hope that there are people at some point who can use this and produce some kind of research. Stop psychology, stop psychiatry, stop with the fucking psychobabble. And psychology in white society is psychopathy. It is a language of compliance with the economics of the currency of a death-born systems of culture, death-born system of personality, and the convergence of the viability of appearances and loyalty to ideas with not a lot of grounding in what a human is. Let's finish by talking about what a human is. A human is not a bunch of psychological terms. No one is just a psychopath. No one is just a schizophrenic, and no one is just a victim. Humans are the richest thing in the world, and no one has the right to hurt people because of who they are, for who they're trying to learn how to be. The school system itself is dehumanizing. It doesn't allow children, and white people are largely okay with this, but because that's who they are, white children become adults very quickly, whereas people with larger cortical thickness spend their whole lives becoming an adult. Whereas sociopaths like my sister talk about adulting and becoming an adult, they've actually stopped really becoming anything by the time they were 10 or 11 years old. They just like the psychobabble. I like the idea of not knowing about the universe, and if I have to go through problems like this, I like the idea that there's something can be learned, stories can be told. Indigenous people know this. While I don't claim to know their culture, of course, as a white Jew, storytelling seems to be a very big part of it, and a big part of being a human being. Jews, indigenous people, and I'm sure every race, the stories we tell are what bring us together. The stories we tell us how we maintain our humanity. For me, to tell my story is the only justice I will ever have. And I haven't had a lot of help, and I would never go to therapy. Therapy is no good to me. Psychiatrists are psychopaths. Psychiatrists support sociopathy. They making up new jargon like neurotypical to constantly revolve around basically justifying the fact that they'll never be able to help anyone. Any more than a white French teacher in high school will ever teach you French, or a white math teacher will ever teach you math. A white psychologist will never teach you how to be a healthy human being. They just have to put their fingers on the piano and make a bunch of sounds and say, yeah, good luck. There's no science to it, right? It's not that psychology is very difficult because it's dealing with the most complex levels of the subjective nature of human experience. No. It's designed by the Frankfurt School to be about supporting the death-born currency of the death-born personalities of the currency of sin and subservience to a God complex, which is a pyramid scheme to which any child can become competent and even avail themselves of advantages that many other people will not be able to protect themselves from. Using words. So I hope people will listen to this and take on the spirit of inquiry and keep that flame going in you, and don't stop. Don't stop. Keep looking every day. Keep looking deeper. Don't take any course of research that minimizes or oversimplifies the human experience. Have humility in all things. Have humility about the people you're writing about the children you think you're helping or teaching. Have humility. I get to deal with a couple children down the road and a neighbor down the road who lives in a native building. He's white, his wife is native. And I see signs of sociopathy in his oldest daughter. I see signs. There are times when she acts like a child, and other times where she starts to access that sort of hyper regulating personality complex and starts controlling the family. And I just hope people will keep that humane spirit of inquiry and understand that all the technology of this world, we're never going to stop needing to find out what it means to be human, be humble, let people define themselves. Don't just use the words. Understand that every day when you deal with a human being, you have a chance to allow that person to be who they are, even if you don't like them, because that's how you have a chance of learning to be who you are. And it may not be nice and it may not be easy. Stay humble. Keep the flame alive. Do some good research. Help people. Tell them you understand them. Tell them you're looking to understand them. Tell them it's worth it to try to find a safe place in this world to express yourself. When I went to social services and mental health with depression from a highly sociopathic family, and I talk about white people being sociopaths, and it's like, it's not to minimize your experience. It's like there's a lot of complex reasons that white families are sociopathic. A lot of people like it, and other people end up dying from it. It's very complex. It's hard to respect everyone involved. And because I was a Jew, they objectified. I went to a depression clinic. I was fetishized. I was given an involuntary chemical lobotomy. And I took things out of it. I learned things about the brain, actually. I learned about how Christians develop their love and devotion to Jesus as a residual effect of how their brains are conformed to a very low oxygen environment. And that Christianity says more about the brain than it does about the God of this universe. Understand the importance of language because it relates to who you are and your breath, and your spirit, and your body. That the laws protecting the voice and the rights of our speech go far deeper than my right to point a camera at someone and take a look at women exercising, exercising my journalistic rights. Your speech is who you are, your voice, your breath, your language, your sense of the language of this world and how it makes you feel and what you conform to and how that makes you feel is all sacred. And there's a journey that we're all on, and spirit is watching. And it's not for me to say that spirit cares or loves. It's for us to find out for ourselves what love this is in this universe. And indeed, what love we have the right to even think about when we are abused as much as we are. There's nothing loving about what happened to me. Let me just be clear about that. But white people you don't have a loving bone in your body. The greatest thing I can say to you is that one day you might rediscover what it means to be a human being and find out what love really is. It's not a poem. It's not a poem in a book, but it's your poem. It's your poem. It's your song. It's not a song. It's your song. It's not my voice. It's your voice. It's yours to discover. And it may be the most difficult thing you ever do, and it's not something you can ever take for granted. This world, the society we live in has affected people in a terrible, terrible way. And what your idea of love and God is not going to fix that. God is a burdensome tax collector, creditor in the sky that collects things from the most vulnerable people precisely because they've been hurt. It stifles and squelches their voice precisely because it has already been so deeply demoralized and failed to comply to the fetishized, the dilettante sort of like way that narcissists and Christians like to float about the world and tell stories about the people they're helping. There's a white alcoholic Christian woman, looks like a crackhead down the street, who has spent most of my time interacting with her, deploring and slandering a beautiful old woman the age of my mother who drives a scooter up and down the sidewalk because she says she's trying to kill people. And then one day, with alcohol in her breath, telling me how she helped an older woman shop at the store. I mean, that doesn't make me think you're a nice person, right? The idea of actually figuring out what kind of character people have, that's something that you have to do yourself. I don't need you to like me. I'm not looking for people to like me in this video. See me as a source of information. It's perfectly fine. See me as something to learn from. Take it. And what you can get from it, I said on YouTube for many years, what you can get from any of my videos belongs to you. You're not stealing it from me. It belongs to you. Because anything anyone can get out of my videos is someone who hungers for knowledge. And whatever that means to you, truth, whatever that means to you, honesty, whatever that means to you. That's something that you were looking for. That's something that maybe the universe is giving to you right now. It's not because I'm giving it to you. You find things because you're looking for them. I have found things because I credit people I've read and stuff like that because I'm thankful to them. But also, I found it. You're the one that puts the meaning and what it means to you, what these words mean to you. That's what's important. Thank you.